Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show. You just want to sort of feel it out?
I don't know. I don't know why I can't talk about them.
Well, I think you should. I, for one, think you should talk about it. I would like to open with this, and since I'm already recording, we'll go ahead. We'll go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Where do you stand?
Surprise.
Where do you stand on the Google Plus Hangout? Have you seen this?
I've only participated in a hangout once, It was kind of just a trial hangout at work just to see if we could do it. And we did. And we're like, this will be great. We can do this all the time for work. And then we've never done it again.
Okay. Well, first of all, it's fantastic. And I use it all the time, particularly for teaching. But what I'm thinking about is because just this week, I think this is pretty cool. Just this week, they released Hangouts on Air for everybody. Do you know what this is? The Hangouts on Air?
No. Tell me.
I'm so glad because now this is like I get to talk about it. So Hangouts on Air is this little checkbox that you get when you turn on a new Hangout inside the Google Plus, and it lets you record. So Google will then record your Hangout and publish it for you on your YouTube channel, and that then becomes the way you do Hangout shows. Like video hangout broadcasts.
So we could actually do like
we could do the show on Google Plus.
So no, but how and it cuts, from my recollection of the one hangout I did, it kind of does not a voice recognition, but it kind of determines which video stream has the voice coming from it, and it just automatically kind of tries to switch to whichever is the most prevalent.
It does, but you can kind of quote, I'm heavily air quoting. If we were on Google Plus, you would see that I'm air quoting.
Nice.
You can produce, like you can write it and say, I want this person to be on focus now, and I want this person to be focused now. So camera one, ready camera one, go camera one, ready camera two, go camera. I would say that while we're doing it. I would.
Wow, that would
ready,
be like...
Ready, Andy. Go, Andy. Ready, Pete. Go, Pete. So you'd have to be. You'd really have to be on. You'd have to really be on because I'd be saying that during our conversation.
That would be so awesome. We should start right now.
So, but what do you think? Because it was we've gotten that comment before that we should do we should try doing a watch along.
Well, if we did that, I'd have to start wearing clothes again while we're doing our podcasts. Whoa! Didn't know I was going to go there, did you?
Ready, Andy? Go, Andy! Huzzah!
Yikes! No, that's an interesting idea.
I think it's a great idea. I don't know if we could do the full watch along because that would be a snoozer, I think, for a lot of it. But I think having a show where we could do a live live broadcast, I think would be really cool. And I would still record the audio track on this end to release as a podcast, just like usual. But we'd do the actual live show via Google Plus. So that's what I'm thinking about. So if anybody has any thoughts on it, if they would tune in for a late night movie chat on Thursday nights, we're considering it. When I say we, Andy, starting just a few minutes ago, has begun considering it.
I have just started, and I still am.
So you think about that. That would be fun. So what else is going on this week? First of all, where can people find you, Andy?
They can find me at on Facebook. They can find me on Google Plus. They can find me on the Twitter at the Movie Monkey, and at Rash Pixel, of course.
That's fantastic. So you're still the Movie Monkey everywhere. You haven't made the move. I'm antsy.
I'm just very unsettled about any change that I've come up with. None of them feel right. So I just I just can't figure out what to do.
All right. Well, standing by on that. I'm Pete Wright at pretty much everywhere. Facebook, Pete Wright, Google Plus, just search for Google Plus, and at Pete Wright on Twitter. And, of course, at rashpixel.tv, where you can find all the Rash Pixel shows. You can also find us on iTunes. We encourage you to find us on iTunes. Just search for Rash Pixel. You'll see all the shows that we do or movies we like, and that will come right up for you. And so please find us there. Leave us a comment if you like the show. We would love to hear what you think there. You can also find us on Stitcher Smart Radio. If you're a Stitcher user, make sure you go download the app from your app store of choice, and then you can listen to us on demand and on the go. Stitcher Smart Radio, and that's the big announcement list for the week. Now, what's going on with you? We were just lamenting that we hadn't seen the Avengers yet. Seems like everybody in the world has seen the Avengers. Actually,
I think everyone in the world has seen it at least a couple times. Based on how much money that thing is raking in.
I know, and that is unreal.
Yeah.
But you know what is? Let me tell you what is nice about this. That I have two opinions on the matter on Avengers. First of all, I've watched the clips that they have released, that the official channel and other unofficial channels have released on YouTube, and I have yet to be disappointed in what I am seeing. And the feedback on the film seems like it is exactly what a giant blockbuster should be. And finally, and again, haven't seen the movie yet, but it sounds like this is the film that's going to change things in a pretty substantive way for Joss Whedon, and that excites
more
me.
Firefly.
But yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I'm hoping, is that maybe we'll get Joss Whedon's stuff to be looked at a little bit more critically, a little bit more seriously, because I've been a fan of this guy for a long time, and it's about time that he's got a little bit of budget cred to him. So
yeah, I think it is pretty exciting. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, aside from, the Avengers 2, they're going to be making Thor 2, Captain America 2, Iron Man 3. I haven't heard anything about
the Hawkeye movie,
Hawkeye or Black Widow, but I, considering the amount of money this is going to just, bank, I wouldn't be surprised if they start trying to add more. Another Hulk movie, just more characters. I have a feeling they're just going to do everything they can to just suck all the money out of it that they can make.
Yeah. I sometimes, and it's hard because you get so used to feeling like, God, I need to hate the big budget movies. You know what I mean? Like there are a few directors, a few actors, and a few franchises that you're allowed to like if they make a lot of money. But most of them, they're popcorn movies. You get to see them once and then forget about them. And then you're not allowed to kind of take them seriously. And this is one of those movies that it seems like you're allowed to. And I think by and large, the Marvel, the people who are shepherding these Marvel properties through the film channel at that organization have done a tremendous job. And even Thor, even Thor, I think they did a good job for what that movie was. That's a very difficult comic, I think, to translate into film. It's a difficult story to translate into film. I think they did a great job.
I think they did a lot better with that than Captain America personally. I really, I've always enjoyed Kenneth Branagh as a director, and honestly, I felt that as soon as I heard they're bringing him on, I was like, okay, that's actually. It took me completely by surprise, but I was like, that's probably the smartest thing they could have done for a movie about a Viking god.
Right.
Is bring this like master of Shakespeare and like that sort of storytelling on to handle it.
Yeah. Yep.
So are you going to see it in 2D or 3D? That's the big question.
3D.
Because it's a conversion. It wasn't shot 3D.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, then I'm going to see it in 2D.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to waste my money on that. I actually did not know that.
Yeah,
I did not know that. It disappoints me.
I think that there are actually few and far between movies that actually get shot in 3D. I think most of them are conversions because it's probably just a cheaper process.
Yeah. I guess I feel like if there is a certain what I think we're seeing with the really good 3D. And there is such a thing as really good 3D, is that when it is shot in 3D, there is a different intention in the cinematography, and you can feel it. You can feel like they thought about how they were going to set up every single shot to take advantage of 3D. And movies that weren't shot in 3D, you don't get that. I need to go back a step and talk about Captain America, because I came to a new awareness about Captain America this week, in fact, thanks to Rachel Maddow.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have no substantive sort of authority on this, what I'm about to say.
Okay.
But I think, and I have done no research on it either, so I may be completely wrong. But I just read, this week I read her book, her new book, Drift, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in Drift, she talks a great deal about the legacy of Ronald Reagan. And about Ronald Reagan, his military history, and how his military history and his Hollywood history sort of influenced one another. His role in the military was, his role. He was put into the military to be the guy to rally the troops and go out and make movies, and be, wait for it, Captain America.
Dun, dun, dun.
That is Ronald Reagan. I did not know that. Did you know that was Ronald Reagan's role in the military?
I had no idea.
So this is what I like so much now. I like Captain America. I liked it a lot. I know I liked it more than you did when I saw it the first time. And
I think probably most of America did.
Probably hard not to. But I like it even more now because there is a greater cultural sort of relevance to it. As a result of reading Drift. And I find that really interesting. It makes me want to go back and do a little bit more reading on the subject, because I think that was the cultural connection that I'll bet early Reagan, either life was imitating art in a pretty significant way. Somebody was reading Captain America and said, you know what we should do? We should put Reagan in a fancy suit.
I would love to see that.
Yeah.
You think he had one hiding in his White House closet?
Wouldn't that be fascinating? That's my new theory, is that Reagan was Captain America, or the other way around.
Do you think he wore his Captain America outfit while he was on the phone with Gorbachev?
At least he at least had the shield.
Yeah, at least, yeah. I think you're right. I think you're probably right.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. So now we were moving on to something else, and I derailed you. I'm sorry about that.
Oh.
What were we talking about?
I don't know what we're moving on to.
Well,
you know what happened to me this week?
Yeah, that's what I want to hear about more than anything else.
It's been a rough week.
Wow.
It's been a rough week because, and it happened last week, but it's made this week rough. I washed my iPod through the laundry in my pocket and destroyed it. And I've had a real figure out how to get what I want to be listening to on my phone. It's been a struggle. So it's kind of put me in this grumpy place. And I've been really enjoying just like really bad movies.
Okay, so let's talk about the bad movies.
So we're going to talk about a few bad movies. One, my wife and I watched this movie the other night, and it was really fun. It's a parody film, and it actually worked a good chunk of the time. It kind of fell apart now and then, but it was actually quite funny. It's called Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Have you heard of that film?
I don't know that film.
Alan Tudyk from Serenity.
I love Alan Tudyk.
Yeah, he is in it. He and this other guy whose name is eluding me at the moment are in it playing backcountry hillbillies. And the movie starts with these teenagers who are going to go camp out in the woods, and it totally feels like some teeny bopper horror movie. And you see these creepy hillbillies like watching them and stuff. But then that's Alan Tudyk and his friend. But then you realize that we're actually following the hillbillies, not these idiot teenagers. And we're seeing the whole movie from the hillbillies' perspective about how these teenagers think that these hillbillies are psychotic killers and trying to kill them. And they mistakenly, one of the teenage girls, the hero girl that one of the hillbillies falls for, she falls off a rock into the water while they're all skinny dipping, and none of her friends see it. And one of the hillbillies dives in and saves her. And then all the friends see them, and the hillbillies are like, "Hey, we got your friend!" And the kids think they're after them, and so they all run. And they're like, "Why are they running?" And it has some really funny parts. It does kind of fall apart toward the end, but and then all the kids start dying. Like they're trying to like get their friend back and stuff, and just odd things keep happening that make the kids actually like accidentally end up killing themselves. And the hillbillies are like, "I know what this is. It's some crazy suicide pact. They come out here in the woods, kill themselves." Oh, it's a riot. It, like I said, it does get a little not so good toward the end, but on the whole, I think it was a very fun thing to watch when you're especially when you're in a grumpy mood like I was.
Well, I don't know which is more entertaining, thinking about the movie or listening to you talk about it, because it's you're like a puppy, and then
I know.
and you should know killing themselves.
I know. It makes me feel like I'm a little preteen watching these movies again. So
I love it.
Tyler Labine, he's the other hillbilly. He's one of those faces that you recognize. He was in Rise of the Planet of the Apes. He was the scientist who accidentally gets himself infected and runs out, and he's kind of a little more heavyset, big beard.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was one of the bad movies.
All right.
There was one
more.
There were three.
Oh,
that I'm bring up,
all right.
And I'll try to keep these other ones short because we don't have all night to talk about bad movies.
As much as we'd like to.
As much as we'd like to. There's this really obscure movie from actually the same year as Field of Dreams, oddly.
That'd be 1989.
1989. And I remember seeing this in the video store, and I never watched it when I was young. And it wasn't until recently that somebody quoted it, and they said it was one of the funniest movies and has some just wacky lines. And so I found it, and it's actually not available except on YouTube or VHS. Because apparently the actual film at the Universal lot burned up, and there's no way they can transfer it to anything better than VHS. And so the creators of this film just we'll just leave it, not bother. It's called, a couple things. It's either called Big Man on Campus or The Hunchback of UCLA. One of those two things.
I want to say that, I know that movie, but I don't know that movie.
It's so goofy. And I started watching it, and I've only actually made it through half of it because it really isn't that good of a movie. But it's got some really funny lines. And it really is this crazy hunchback who lives in the bell tower on the UCLA campus. And he falls for this girl and just all this wacky stuff. And he decides, there's this part where this hunchback decides to, they ask him, Tom Skerritt plays the campus psychologist and is helping this guy and says he needs to come up with a name. And so he decides to call himself, and I'm probably going to say it wrong, but it's something like Bob Maluga Luga or something like that.
That's Alan Katz.
Yes.
Plays Bob Maluga.
Yeah. Maluga. It's one Maluga, 5 Lugas is how he defines it. Anyway,
this was the let's just say this was the only movie that Alan Katz was an actor in. He then went on to produce such hit titles as Rhoda, MASH, Charlie and Company, Roseanne, Scorch, and Blossom.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
So, there's that.
It just goes to show you can somehow find your way.
You can resuscitate any career, people. Any career.
But really, if you are in the mood to watch just a really bad 80s movie that actually has some oddly funny moments, check out Big Man on Campus. Somebody actually found a VHS copy and they put it on the entire film on YouTube. So you can just sit there and watch the whole film.
Cindy Williams. Shirley.
Yes.
Was she Laverne or Shirley?
She was I don't know, Shirley. She was Shirley, I think.
I'm going to say she was Shirley.
I think yes. So last movie, and this is a weird cult film that actually our buddy Chad Stoops
was in.
Pointed out to me. He was not in it. It's called The Room. And it's this strange movie that was made, I don't know when, sometime in the last 10 years. I think it was around 2002. And it's this horrible foreign actor who, and honestly, this one is so worth going to YouTube and typing in The Room and just watching some of the clips of it because it's so bad. I've never seen anything so bad in a way where it's actually hilarious. It's almost as if they're doing everything bad on purpose to make it funny.
Wow.
The green screen work is bad. I mean, this guy, his name is Tommy Wiseau. I don't know how you say his name, but he looks like this European actor with just long, curly, black, greasy hair who's the lead in this. And it's so worth watching some of these clips of this movie, The Room, on YouTube. And oddly enough, it is like turning into a strange Rocky Horror Picture Show, like cult phenomenon that's actually making a ton of money in LA now.
Wow.
Because they'll do all these midnight screenings at these obscure theaters. People will line up around the block to go see this movie, and they will quote it, and they will just drink and crack up. And it's like this phenomenon.
I have never heard of this one either, but what I like the most about it is the people who liked this also liked list on IMDb, because you get such hits as Bulletproof with Gary Busey, Napoleon Dynamite, and, wait for it, Birdemic, Shock and Terror. A platoon of eagle and vultures attack the residents of a small town. Many people died. That's the clip.
I have a whole new list of bad movies that I can watch this week.
God, you totally do. Oh, that's fantastic. I'm adding this one to my list for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so just a review. We've got The Room. What were the other ones that we already just talked about? I've already forgotten them.
Big Man on Campus.
BMOC. And what was the third one?
The third one was
You've forgotten
Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Oh, yeah. Alan
Tucker
Tudyk.
and Dale versus Evil, yep. That one, it's not bad, but that one's actually just more funny because of what they're trying to do. But
yeah, it's a good it's a concept film.
Yeah,
all right,
yeah. It's a fun parody.
I like it. That's hysterical. I'm in for 2 of the 3 of those.
I'm curious which 2.
You'll know next week.
That's right.
All right, can we just do a quick recap of last week? Well, first of all, this is the end of our baseball extravaganza. We've done 4 movies. This will be the 4th movie, baseball film, right?
Yes.
The first one was
El Natural.
The Natural, which was terrific. The second one was Major League, which was also we like very much. The third one was just as Bull Durham. And I had some problems with Bull Durham. In general, I like this movie, but this is the comment that we got from our friend of the show, Steve Sarmento, on Google Plus. You can see this in print. This week, instead of laughing, says Steve, I was yelling. Let me say that again. This week, instead of laughing, I was yelling. And then he goes on to say, Pete Wright, you make me so angry. And I happen to know, because he's not been shy about telling us this. He listens to this show while he's doing yard work. And I find that like horrific to think that I cause this sort of emotion to come out of this guy while he could cause a horrendous accident with garden tools because of this rage at me. And I feel terrible about that. I will say that his comment goes on with some substance. Quote, maybe it's because I was a fan of Kevin Costner because he was coming off The Untouchables and No Way Out. Absolutely give him that. Love The Untouchables, one of my top movies. He continues, maybe because when I saw this in the theater, I was in the transition from high school to college and figuring out what kind of man I was going to be. And if you had to choose between Crash and Nuke, obviously the characters in the film, I think the choice is pretty clear. The performances didn't bother me because the writing was so strong. And I agree.
Wow.
With all of that, except that last point. Unfortunately, the performances did bother me, but everything else, I'm with you on everything else. And so I was forced to stand by my my call that Kevin Costner does in fact play the role of a 2x4 in this movie. But The Untouchables was terrific, and this movie came out. It's you develop that sort of emotional connection to films and to these roles when you see them. And I think the same. I feel the same way about Raiders of the Lost Ark. and we talked about that connection that I have. That movie represents the connection I have to my father, and that was a very important movie. I think that's the sort of kind of emotional connection we get with these movies, and I just thought that was a really good point. And I apologize to Steve for causing such such a fit of pique.
He's ruined his rose bush now.
It's all you can't even go to his house anymore. The branches are like hanging off of trees.
He destroyed
his yard. And maybe this week we'll get him to spray paint his own house.
He was probably like running around his yard like Leatherface at the end of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, just swinging the chainsaw in every direction, like hacking it all up.
It was probably the best comment we've ever gotten on the show.
I did get an email actually just today from somebody who said, from Dan Hitchman actually from long ago. He said, I'd have to kind of side with Pete on the subject of Kevin Costner and his somewhat wooden style. Though I think it depends a lot on the script and if he gets a good director who can work within his limitations. Costner's a bit sporadic, so you got someone on your side.
And no better person to have on my side than the good Dan Hitchman.
That's right.
That's fantastic to share. But that brings us in by way of segue to this week's movie, the fourth and final in our baseball extravaganza, Field of Dreams.
Huzzah!
I'll bet you're wondering what I'm going to say about this movie.
Do
you care? Do you care actually? Because I make an assumption that you care.
I have my theory as to what you're going to say about this movie.
All right.
Do you want me to theorize?
No, sure. Yeah, go ahead and say. What do you think I'm going to say about this movie?
I actually think that you really like this movie, and I think a lot of it has to do with the director and sneakers, and your father and Grace, maybe.
Well, hell, you got most of it right. I was kind of hoping to stump you. Okay, so do you want to go first? I feel like I always go first. Why don't you go first?
Okay, I'll go first. Yeah. I love this movie. I love this movie. And this movie I cannot watch without crying. It just, I'm admitting it, but I like as soon as the whole hot dog scene starts. Actually, before the hot dog scene starts, it starts with Terrence Mann's speech. From that scene on, I can't control myself. I'm like a weepy 60-year-old woman watching a Hallmark commercial. It's that bad. Oh, so there you go.
I just want to let that image float in the air.
Out there.
There's Andy watching a Lifetime movie again.
It doesn't even need to be a movie. It's just the commercial, just the Hallmark commercial. Oh, she came home for the holidays.
Peter. It's Folgers, right? It's Peter. I smell coffee and Christmas.
Man.
Okay, all right. I did not remember just how much I liked this movie.
Yeah.
I did not remember that. There was so much about this movie that I had just plumb forgotten. And I really liked it. I was not, this is not a movie that made a mess of me. But I can see how you might. And I think the Terrence Mann speech, you're talking about right before he, when he says you gotta.
Oh, it's the whole speech.
Yeah, that's pretty much the whole thing.
Once he starts.
Yeah, no, he starts talking.
It's so hopeful.
It's as he's backing up into the field with the player.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just stunning.
Oh,
you can't sell the farm, Ray.
Yeah.
No, it is terrific. Let me tell you what I love about this movie, and this is where we're going to get into it.
All right.
If you walk into this movie thinking, "Gosh, Field of Dreams it's going to be a great baseball movie,"
mm-hmm.
I think you miss a lot of it.
Yeah.
Because I think this is a movie that is, I don't know if genre busting is the way to do. I mean, it is a full on fantasy film.
It is, and AFI actually has it ranked on their top 10 fantasy films.
And I think that's important. And this is why, because this is a movie that, like the strict fantasy genre, it is a movie that exists in a universe all its own. And it is a universe that has its own unique rule set. And those rules are set up early on. And while it's a universe that mirrors ours, they make no bones about it. This is a universe that is not ours. And I feel like I enjoyed the movie that much more when I was able to let go of the fact that this is not something that's going to, that I necessarily need to be tied to, a strict earthbound rule set. And I think it starts from the blurb. Like, the blurb on IMDb is terrific. And I want to read it, because if you think of this as a baseball movie, hopefully this will dissuade you a little bit. From IMDb. An Iowa corn farmer, hearing voices, interprets them as a command to build a baseball diamond in his fields. He does, and the Chicago Black Sox come.
Mm-hmm.
You say, but really? Is that sound like a movie you would ever want to see?
It sounds really weird. The way that that's written is kind of strange. I wouldn't think that that's a good pitch for the story.
No, it's a Noah's Ark story. That's what it is. I mean, it's a Noah's Ark story for dead baseball players. Do you know what? That would be a better metaphor. That would be a better pitch for this movie. That's how they should. Where was I in 1989? This is a Noah's Ark story for dead baseball players. And I say that with the greatest respect, because I love this movie. And I think, so here's why I love this movie, because, so the opening montage, right? There's this montage where you hear Kevin Costner and he's talking about backstory, but you don't actually see him speak until after he hears the voices. And this is one of those things that I had forgotten. The voice is the first post-credit roll voice that you hear in this film. There is no setup, right?
Right. Yeah, it literally does start the film. That's not the inciting incident of the film. That's not, the turning point from Act 1 to Act 2. I mean, that literally is the first thing that happens in the film that pushes us into the rest of the story.
Yes. And I thought structurally, that's so ballsy.
It is. It was actually a really interesting idea.
Okay, so tell me why.
Because normally that's the sort of moment that, the way a film typically gets set up is you've got the first piece of the film is the setup of the regular world that your hero, your protagonist, lives in, so that we can get a sense of what their world is. And then about 15 minutes into the film or so, you have something that's called the inciting incident. And that is the thing that happens that pushes your hero into this story, and all of a sudden now they're thrust into what's going on. A good example is Toy Story. You've got the first 15 minutes of the film is the setup of the world of the toys, and they're all kind of dealing. We get a sense of what this world is, and the fact that they have to pay attention to things like what is he going to get at his birthday party, and is it going to replace any of us? And Woody, we learn about Woody and his role. 15 minutes into the film, the inciting incident happens, and that is the arrival of Buzz Lightyear. And all of a sudden, it pushes things in a different direction in the story, and now we have our story. What they're doing in this film is taking what typically would be the inciting incident. We don't really learn a lot of the story of Ray Kinsella and his life. We have that little 1-minute voiceover at the beginning about his father, but then we're into this story about voices in the ball field or in the cornfield, right? Really shifts the way that the story is structured, making it where that is part of just the regular world that he's in. We're in this world where voices talk from the cornfield, and it really becomes a story not about what are these voices, but it becomes a story about what is he going to do about this voice.
Well, and that is I think that's one of those things that really is why this is genre busting, because it is the fact that we are hearing the voices. As you say, it's something you normally would see as the inciting incident in the script. Instead, the voice defines the universe that we're in. And that's what sets it up as a fantasy. And that's why you learn this. And in fact, the inciting incident really doesn't come until after the, after the field is built. And in fact, like clockwork, the field is finished at 15 minutes or 16 minutes and 6 seconds. I mean, it's like right there. And then we get into, it's funny. It's like there's a whole movie that happens in the first 20 minutes of this movie where we set up the rules of the universe. We hear the voices. He builds the thing. And then there is a mini act 3 where they're about to lose everything. And that's when his daughter says, "There's a man in your yard."
Yeah. I think that, the appearance of Shoeless Joe really is the inciting incident of the film, because that's all of a sudden thrusting us further into this world, because he heard the voices and he built it. So he followed through on an action, not knowing where it was going to take him. Boom! All of a sudden, there's a ghost in his yard.
So, I'm interested in your take on this, because I feel like it is really counterintuitive to build the film this way, and I think Phil Alden Robinson, who wrote and directed the movie, took a big risk in doing this, in putting this sort of rushed Act 1 that feels like a compressed film that into it to really just set up the rules of this of where we are, and then get into a movie that we didn't know we were really watching. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, it does make sense, and I think the reason that it and I haven't read the I don't know, have you, by W.P. Kinsella?
I have
Shoeless
not
Joe. Did you read that?
No, I have not read.
So I'm curious how the book is structured, if it's similar to this or not. But I think, exactly like we just said, it really does create a unique structure, and what it does is it makes it feel like it's something we haven't seen before. And that's why I think it feels exciting when we're watching it, because we're right from the start, we're in this world where voices talk from cornfields, and it puts a twist on a story, and it makes us step back and go, wait a minute, maybe I haven't seen this before. Because if you move that inciting incident, and the inciting incident, the whole first act is Ray and Annie learning about life on the farm, and they're kind of getting things going, and they're struggling to make the corn grow, and then the inciting incident is all of a sudden he hears this voice. It still works, but it also just creates this different feel for the film. And then we're not it still could work, it's not necessarily pushing us in the same direction. So the way that they did it this way, I think what it's doing is it's making the presence of the person more important, and then the answer about who that person is and why he came more important, and that builds to that ending moment when he learns who it was that's coming.
It's a fascinating bit, because there's this, once you get through that, that the first meeting with Shoeless Joe, and he goes on his hero's journey, right? Mm-hmm. He takes it on faith. I'm watching this movie with my wife last night, and we both sort of shared this look about halfway through, saying, kind of, why are we invested in the decisions this character is making? Mm-hmm. And I found that really interesting, because we were invested. There's no doubt we were invested in the decisions he was making, but we couldn't define why we cared clearly. Hmm. And I think that's one of the things that I have trouble writing it off as sort of screen magic, because typically when you get invested into a character, it's because you have this understanding of backstory that is clear, and you have an understanding of this point of pain that they are looking to resolve through this epic journey. And in this case, you don't really feel that way. They're struggling for money. Who isn't? In agriculture, which is a troubling field to be in. particularly at this point in history as the economy was, changing pretty dramatically. And here we are, like, trying to figure out why that we are now suddenly invested in the decisions he's making based on faith alone. It's like this invisible lasso that Robinson has just sort of wrapped around our necks and has drug us along, and we didn't even see that we were into it. In the first 15 minutes, we're thinking, why would this guy do this? And suddenly, by the time he hits the apartment and meets James Earl Jones, man, we are in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my sort of hypothesis is really built on the strength of the script, which is just, it's as efficient as they come. We talked about the efficiency of language in The Natural and how sparse of a screenplay it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is another one that sort of fits that mold. It is an extremely sparse screenplay. And when the monologues come, it makes them so much more powerful. And I mean, like, archetypically powerful.
Yeah.
And so when he hits that apartment and you see that it's almost comical, but sort of mano a mano struggle to come to this new center of understanding between these two guys. That's a major point of transition where you feel like, okay, I'm invested. I may not know why. I don't understand what this journey is all about for this guy, but I'm totally in.
Well, and part of that, I think there's two things. One is because he himself doesn't fully understand it. And we buy into him not understanding it, but having that need to see it through. And I think the reason that we buy into that is from a conversation that happens early in the film, in that first sequence there, where he is in bed with his wife and they're having a conversation, and he's talking about his father, and he says, I'm 36 years old, I have a wife, a child, and a mortgage, and I'm scared to death I'm turning into my father. And he has this conversation about, we learn about his father in the beginning and how his father had kind of played ball and stuff, but he never really knew his father. And it's not cluing us in so much that as to how the film is going to end. Like, I was so completely surprised when I first saw this as to how it was going to end. I never saw that coming, that his father would be there. But I think what it's setting up is this fear that, it's a midlife crisis. People have this fear where they're turning into their father. They're not accomplishing anything that they dreamed about when they were young. They're no longer taking risks. They're kind of settling into this life that they're not, it's not necessarily the life that they intended to be living. And he is scared to death, but he finally decides, you know what? I know it's stupid, but I am going to follow through with this. And I think that's why I invest in him, and that's why I go along for that journey, because he doesn't understand why, but he has to see it through.
Well, and that gets to the point, I think, where maybe at least my wife and I don't think we ever really came to center on why the movie was powerful to us. To me, this is and we've talked about these kinds of stories before, but to me, this is a story that captures the sort of emotional intensity of what happens when you become a grown-up, but then you become a man. You know what I mean? Like there is that sort of what an adult male is until you become a man. And there's a trigger point when that happens. And for some people, it's when they get married. For some people, it's when they see the sort of the birth of their first child. I mean, there is that transformation. If you've hit it, you totally know. It's like I can't go back to what I was anymore. I know that I've hit this turning point in my life where I can't go back anymore, and I have to move on through the fear and through the whatever it is. And for this guy, he hit a trigger point, and maybe it was about sort of finances, and maybe it was about whatever. Maybe it was just that he totally got himself upside down in a farm, and he wasn't a farmer.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that was the point of the montage.
Well, I don't think they were upside down on the farm
until he
decided to plow down all of his corn.
And he had beautiful corn.
It was
the
stunning.
fields was gorgeous. It was
I love it at sunset.
Yeah. So but whatever it is, that's the feeling that I get. Like that's what I feel like I get to watch Costner do, is become the guy that he wants to be tomorrow.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, he and his wife were, 60s radical hippies from Berkeley, and they grew up and they tried being grown-ups, like you said, but they weren't, he hadn't become a man yet. And even buying the farm, they kind of did that on a whim. But, I guess almost thinking like it was going to be what, the thing that would make him a man or something, but it really took a little more. And I think that this story is that transition where he finally does become a man. And it's powerful stuff.
It's really powerful stuff. So let's talk about some background. First of all, here's a question for you I could not find. Who is the voice?
I knew that, and I want to say it's Kevin Costner, but I can't remember if I'm right about that. What's interesting about the voice is, and I love little things like this because it feels so kind of old school filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who recorded the voice, the audio guy on the film, he recorded the person saying it, and then what he did is he took it into a canyon with huge speakers, and he played these speakers, playing that voice in the canyon, and then he re-recorded it with that echo and that kind of booming hollow sound as it kind of floats around, and used that as the voice when we hear it in the cornfield. So it creates this just wild, wide echoing voice. It's just a great sound to it.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool. It takes me back to the, what was it? The hitting the high tension wires that hold up poles to get the laser sound blasts in Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's just, those Foley sound artists are amazing.
Yeah. The stuff that they do is pretty stunning. And I love all those little things, like in Terminator 2, I think when the truck is running into them, as you hear it charging up, they added the sound of a lion's
roaring.
roar.
I know, that's
it's just like all that stuff is great. So,
well, let's talk a little bit about Phil Alden Robinson. And man, did you nail it. This is, and it's so funny. I have not seen a lot of this guy's stuff, and it makes me think, why have I, because
well, he's only directed 7 films.
I know, but I have only seen 3 of them. Well, no, I take that back. Let me look at the directors. So no, I've seen them. I've actually seen more than that. So I have not seen the George Burns Comedy Week. I have not seen In the Mood. But Field of Dreams was terrific. Obviously, that was one of the early ones. Then Sneakers, which is way at the top of my list. It's very crowded at the top of my list, but I love Sneakers. Yeah. He directed I would say probably the best episode of Band of Brothers, the Currahee episode, which was, Band of Brothers was an incredibly moving experience for me. It was very powerful, and that was certainly one of the top. And Sum of All Fears, which was, it was not terrible. I like the Morgan. I like Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Ben and
there's a thing. So Ben Affleck and Matt Damon are in this movie. Field of Dreams.
What?
Yeah. Did you know
really?
that? Did you know that, Big Shot?
I didn't know.
Huh? Yeah. How's that? I sort of pulled one over on you a little bit.
Who are they? Are they in one of the cars coming up at the end? Yeah, that's an interesting little bit of trivia to track down.
They're baseball fans at Fenway.
Of course.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Uncredited.
That's awesome.
Yeah. 1989, who were they? They were snot-nosed kids. Nothing.
That was probably before...
Goodwill.
What's that? It was definitely before Goodwill. What was the one with Brendan Fraser they were in? The school something. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go. Well, anyway, so we were going to talk about Phil Alden Robinson. So
yeah.
you were absolutely right. I mean, that's I found that we've already talked about sort of the just artistry of the script, and the structure of the script. I think was really clever, and so I think he was just a very talented writer, and the direction of the film I thought was very powerful as well. So what's not to like about this guy? I don't know. Your thoughts?
He's a writer director. He's done quite a bit of like I said, he hasn't directed a lot of things. He's written a lot more things, and I like him. He's somebody who he hasn't done a ton of stuff, especially recently. Although it looks like he's working on an old Sinatra. I'll let you guess what that's about. But he's done some good stuff. He wrote All of Me, which I always thought was a funny movie back in the day.
Totally agree.
So it's I don't know a lot about him, but I generally like the feel of his stuff. It's just it feels like just good Hollywood films.
Yeah. Pretty authentic material. I feel like it's very much personality material.
Yeah, it is.
So, what other highlights of the production that that really stick out to you?
Well, I mean, they did actually film this in Iowa, except for obviously Fenway Park and that. They shot it in Iowa. They used this house. They made this cornfield. And I think what's interesting, what I thought is that because of the book and then because of the movie, the owner of this property, and I had his name here, and now I lost it. It's Donnie and Becky Lansing owned this property. They kept the field as the Field of Dreams movie site. And they have it open to the public from April through November. And you can go and you can just toss a ball around and have a game and all that stuff. And I think it is so fascinating. And I guess they make their money off the concessions and gift store. But I think it's amazing that these people continued this from the time the movie happened, and kind of in honor of the book, but also just in honor of kind of the magic that it created, that they actually keep this there as a free thing for people to go and just have kind of a magical moment, that real authentic connection with America and baseball. I think it's amazing.
Man, that's really awesome. That's what a great homage to not just a movie, but the entire, sort of what the movie represents to a lot of people.
Yeah. It's true. It's a great thing that they did. And I actually would love to go see it one day. I think that'd be fun.
You should totally do that.
I'm gonna.
So John Lindley is the director of cinematography for this film.
Mm-hmm.
Man, there's have we done anything that he's done yet? Have we haven't done show. Not on our show. He's done well, if we've talked about it and he hasn't done it, then it's safe to say he's done pretty much everything else.
He's a very busy man, isn't he?
Very busy man. I was trying to figure out if he pretty much just does Kevin Costner movies, but it looks like Kevin Costner and Tom Hanks are and of course Pan Am, the TV series. I think the short-lived Pan Am TV series. He's been around a long time.
He has done quite a bit. I think he's only done one Tom Hanks movie that I see.
Yeah, You've Got Mail. I think that's it.
So yeah.
He did this was kind of a standout film. He's done a lot of sort of the love story type films. Looks like, although he was a DP for Sneakers as well.
Yeah, he and Phil Alden Robinson go
way back. It looks
from
like.
87 all the way until Sum of All Fears, and he very well could end up on this Sinatra movie too. So,
what he did do one of my all-time favorite Wes Craven films, Serpent and the Rainbow.
Creepy.
Oh, I feel like we're going to need to have that one on the list.
We should.
We need a Halloween series.
That is just a creepy movie.
It was very difficult to watch. That
Yeah.
Paul Winfield is,
Oh,
he goes dark.
boy, does he ever.
Anyway, so man, I got lost in that movie. So back to John Lindley. He did anything that stands out to you from a cinematography standpoint that you feel like is worth talking about?
It's just it's a lot of this felt like it was shot at the golden hour, which is really not an hour. It's probably about like 15-20 minutes just as the sun's set or rising, and you just have that nice glow. It's really hard to shoot that because it's such a short time, but they sure got some great looks with it, I thought, and just the corn, all that stuff, and then the shooting with the lights, I think, is always a challenge. Those great big baseball field lights, it's such a lot of light. And I do remember, one thing, they're probably shooting a lot at night when they do that, or overnight. And I did hear them talking about just the vast quantity of insects that those lights were drawing.
Oh, that's got to be terrible.
It's always
I
something
didn't even
to
think
deal
about
with when you're
that.
shooting at night. Yeah, just so
Especially in
many
a
bugs.
cornfield.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
I can only imagine the mess that those things made. So.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, it is, and I sort of go back and forth thinking about from the perspective of cinematography. Is it a blessing or a curse to find out you're shooting in a cornfield? Because the bar is pretty high. There are some terrific cornfield movies. Like you have this expectation of absolute beauty, and just sort of this is the amber waves of grain kind of a feeling. I think you're right. I think this movie really captures that the essence of what it means to be in the middle of this, in the middle of this sort of endless field.
Can I get some of your list of great cornfield movies?
I will actually document the cornfield movies, but I'm actually now.
All I can think of is Children of the Corn. That's like the only thing I can think of. That and Signs.
It's. But
sure
see, those happened
other...
after, and that's what I mean. Like, just as I said that, I'm thinking about movies where I really feel like they got corn, and now I say it out loud, but because I have this vision of the corn movies. But I think Superman Returns did a great job with corn. Of course, that happened so long after Field of Dreams that it's not fair to say that. So all the movies that I'm thinking of it came after the movie. So actually he probably now had it really easy. So he was just phoning it in.
He's the one who set the bar.
He's the one who actually set the bar high.
Exactly.
And maybe it wasn't even that high. Maybe he just showed up. John, why do I don't even care anymore.
Oh man, that's great. So, oh my. Well, this film did get a few Oscar nominations. Best Picture, which was great for Lawrence and Charles Gordon, who produced it. Mm-hmm. Best Adapted Screenplay by Phil Alden Robinson, and Best Original Score by good old James Horner. Great music in this one.
Here's another busy guy. The movie. Did you find a budget on this movie?
He's a busy guy, but he's busy because he doesn't seem that busy because half of his scores feel like he's just copying himself.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I have heard tale that John Williams and James Horner actually have a significant sketch writing staff, and that much of what they do is actually done by the hands of their able elfin assistants.
Well, and I think that happens a lot in the world of composing. Hans Zimmer, he's notorious for his what's it called, the remote control group, the whole thing with that just cranks out all sorts of composers who do lots of bad work. Some do good work. I shouldn't say they all do bad work. There's some who do good work.
Okay,
anyway,
but did you find a budget on this film?
I couldn't find a budget.
I thought you had the backdoor locker, the secret I'm in the industry locker on the web that that would.
They don't have the budget listed on it.
It
They only have the
made
box office, which is about $64.5 million domestically.
Huh. That that doesn't seem like as much as I would have thought.
No,
I guess in 1989, I have to in $1999. I guess that's good.
Yeah. This came out. It was released April 21st, 1989. This was released only a 2 weeks after Major League.
Yeah,
And Major League's budget was $11 million. I'm guessing that this is probably somewhere in that range, maybe a little under. That's just a guess.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
This let's see. The one other thing, Crazy, written by Willie Nelson. This one of the songs in this film was performed by Beverly D'Angelo.
I know, isn't that trippy?
that may be the weirdest thing that I learned about this movie.
Yeah.
Besides the thing with the bugs.
Yeah, the bugs. There you go. It's hard to pick which one is weirder.
Yeah, between Beverly D'Angelo. I didn't know she was. I thought she was just the Lampoons thing. Family
All
Vacation.
those years we were wondering, where is she?
Where is she?
Singing Willie
Turns
Nelson
out she's
songs.
singing Willie Nelson songs.
Mm-hmm.
So in general, this is it's a terrific film, and I'm gonna say this out loud. I liked Costner in this movie.
There you go.
I did. This is one of the movies I really liked Costner in this movie. I thought he captured the sort of bumbling transition from boy to man that I thought was really good, and maybe it was affected in some part by being on screen with Amy Madigan and James Earl Jones and Ray Liotta and Burt Lancaster in his last film. Maybe all of those things kind of came together, and it ended up making this sort of magical event for Costner. But I thought he did a terrific job in this movie, and I really the role meant something to me.
Yeah,
it meant something to me in every way that his role in that last piece of crap didn't.
Hey, whoa,
zing!
Wow, you had to go there, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I said that. So,
this is called Movies We Like, Peter.
I know, and I like that one. It's not actors we like. Oh no!
Oh, you just said you called it a piece of crap.
No, I like that. That was hyperbole.
Oh,
that was hyperbole because I actually did like that movie. So what about you? Are you wrap it up? Take us home. You started it. Now you got to end it.
Oh wow, this is a random bit of trivia about this movie because it inspired this baseball field to be there. It has now inspired a group of people to dress up like the Black Sox players. I'm sorry, the White Sox players.
No, they were the Black Sox.
The Black Sox. The eight.
They were the eight, yeah.
They dress up like the players. Actually, I think it's more than just the Black Sox. I think they actually portray the whole team. These guys now come out to this field dressed like the White Sox from 1919, and they play baseball. And somebody actually made a documentary about these guys called Ghost Players, Relive the Magic. It's a magical award-winning documentary about a baseball team grown on the original Field of Dreams that then traveled the world.
Well, that's fascinating because I'm not quite sure what they're reliving. Are they reliving the movie Field of Dreams, or are they reliving the Chicago 8 or the White Sox and
I don't know.
I don't know what they're doing.
It's like the Civil War guys, except they picked a totally different bit of history to jump back to.
That's exactly right.
I wonder if in 100 years there will be people like jumping back in time or dressing up and portraying us doing a podcast.
We should be so lucky.
Oh,
are you kidding? Oh, my goodness. That's fantastic. I'm going to start wearing a sword, and I'm going to do it for 100 years from now, future Pete.
That would be awesome.
I want to make sure that anybody who plays me knows that it's appropriate to carry a sword.
That's right.
Ah.
So I'm gonna end this because this is the end of our baseball series.
Yep.
So I'm gonna end it with Terrence Mann's last little bit of his line here, which we actually have already discussed a little bit because Billy Crystal did it so well on the Academy Awards this year. The one constant through all the years, Ray, has been baseball. America has rolled by like an army of steamrollers. It has been erased like a blackboard, rebuilt and erased again. But baseball has marked the time. This field, this game, it's a part of our past, Ray. It reminds us of all that was once good, and it could be again. Oh, people will come, Ray. People will most definitely come. And it's good stuff.
That's really good stuff. It's really good stuff.
I don't have the James Earl Jones voice to do that, but
baseball.
Baseball.
I don't know either. Yeah. And so that does it. That ends our baseball extravaganza, and now we are moving on. And this is really what we've been filling. And I think we did it ably. I mean, let's be fair. I think we did a fine job. I think the baseball was fine, and then the shows before that, they were all fine. But really, we've been filling to get to this point. Today, the line must be drawn here. I'm going to pull out the Star Trek reference for no reason.
It's titillating. Can I say that on the air?
It's titillating.
It's titillating.
And so we begin our Aliens trilogy, and we did this, or trilogy, our Aliens extravaganza, the Alien extravaganza, let's say it right. And it begins next week, because if you calculate it out, go ahead, get out your calendars. We're going to do next week, we're going to do Alien, then we're going to do Aliens the week after, then we're going to do Alien 3, and then
which also is completing our David Fincher.
Yes, and that was
Benjamin Button.
The Benjamin Button David Fincher Fest. So we that was intentionally left out. Some people may have noticed that we did not actually do that one. We are going to catch up there, and then Resurrection, and then all of this leads to the worldwide release of Prometheus, and we will be doing that in 5 weeks' time. Which we are really, I don't know if you know this about us, but we're really excited about that movie. So we're building up to the big promo.
The
Promy.
The prom.
Yeah. So that's where we are.
Yes.
Anything else?
We're excited.
I'm thrilled. I'm actually quite thrilled to go back and watch Alien. I haven't seen it. I haven't actually sat down and watched probably 4 or 5 years, so I'm very excited to watch it. I'm going to sit down with my 6-year-old and see if he gets into it at all.
You do that. Let's talk about how well that goes.
I'll let you know how that goes. Yeah.
You'll be recording from the doghouse.
All right. I got nothing else. Are you done?
I'm done. I am spent. And I'm spent.
Here at The Next Reel, we've been passionately discussing movies week after week since 2011. That's a lot of movies and a lot of conversation.
Sure is, Pete. And to be honest, it's a lot of work too. But it's work that we love. If you have been enjoying our show, we'd like to remind you that there are ways to support us even if you're not able to become a member just yet. You might have heard us talk about our new watch page where we've listed every movie that we've talked about paired with Amazon or Apple links to rent or buy the movie.
Now we'd like to introduce you to our originals page. Let's take a trip down memory lane, Andy. Do you remember what the first film we discussed on The Next Reel was that was an adaptation?
Well, let's see. It wasn't obviously our Indiana Jones series because those were all original. Then we did Charlie Kaufman. Oh, of course. It was adaptation from Susan Orlean's Orchid Thief.
Exactly. We have covered quite a few adaptations over the years, and now we're providing a way for our listeners to delve into the original source material.
That's right. Just head over to thenextreel.com/originals, and you can see the list of all the adaptations that we have discussed.
From our David Fincher series, featuring The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, The Social Network, Zodiac, Benjamin Button, and Fight Club,
To our Paranoia trilogy with The Parallax View and All the President's Men, we have covered a variety of adaptations.
Those were some great discussions, especially Fight Club. And let's not forget our baseball series with The Natural and Field of Dreams, adapted from Shoeless Joe.
And Up in the Air and Thank You for Smoking. So many memorable conversations.
Absolutely. And you know what's exciting? Each purchase you make through our links doesn't cost you any extra, but a percentage goes to support the next reel in our family of shows.
You can support us while diving deeper into these fantastic stories, whether it's the paper, audiobook, or Kindle version.
We've also included plays and movies. If they were the source, we've put it on there.
So what are you waiting for? Head to thenextreel.com/originals, support The Next Reel, and get your next great read today.
I'm off to reread Fight Club. Now, where did I put my Kindle?